It's safer for my bank account. Just ask Mrs. No Show.
Does she have the slip as well?
No, she needs it. We are back, the world's most bullish podcast, Mr. All In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, and myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and Mrs. No Show. Still back to being Mrs. No Show. This is Pod 71.
Do we need to have a bet? Do we need to have a bet for when she's back?
This is a good shout. Yeah. Will we see one more appearance on or before the end of the calendar year?
I reckon around about pod 100.
Okay.
That's like, that's like about 7 or 8 months.
Yeah, so it'll be a while. I don't think it's going to be immediate because there's a lot of Call of Duty and Starbucks to be drunk.
Yeah, I think I have to go for the under there. As in, no, I don't think he's going to make it before 2023. Because at this whole period, it's busy, isn't it? Especially with kids and all that. And obviously, we know that's a big distraction that he's got going on there. So, yeah.
I mean, the kids are in bed at this time. You mean most kids?
Yeah. Well, that's the excuse, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he will come through and bless us with his presence once again. He could do a me and just pop up at the end of the show. You never know.
Yeah. What do you think? Are you going over or under on?
Oh, I'm going over. Yeah, I'm going over 100.
Oh, so you're going over 100?
Yeah.
What about? Oh, so that's you're definitely not this financial year then.
I'm going for just under 100, so it's not going to. So it won't be this calendar year. It'll be
pod
sometime
99
next year. Yeah, about pod 99 is when I'm going to go.
Yeah, I think I'd say less than 100. I'll say less than 90 just to like separate it.
Okay, I'll go pod 99. I reckon pod 99 is going to come in.
You're just coming on 100 now. Just it's around.
He'll never know because he doesn't listen, and neither of us. No one will tell him anyway. As to that, there's a sweepstake as to when he will join. So we'll see. Viewers, feel free to message and give us your thoughts as to when Mrs. No Show will show.
Yeah, I'll give someone 10,000 sats if they can find how to message the Neverlook. Oh, Mrs. I wouldn't know. Like Mrs. No Show doesn't really have a social media presence.
Needs to set up an email.
Yeah.
We need to get the domain, the 4 Bs, and then you can have Sir Neverlook, Mr. All In, and Dr. Evil 10%. People can email.
It's going to be a lot of dick pics.
What, mainly from you to me?
Yeah, I'll just be sending them around, yeah.
You could just repost your favourite memes as well.
So we had the drop-in last week, and it was live from Amsterdam from Bitcoin 2022. So only one of us went. So I think it's going to be one of us is going to tell the rest of us about their fantastic week.
Do you know what? It was actually fantastic. And this is the beauty of the show. I know, Mr. All In, you led us down this rabbit hole, bastard. You and obviously it's one of those fantastic stories which you get to relate because everyone's story is unique as to how you fell down the rabbit hole. How did you discover Bitcoin? My story is actually slightly before yourself, Mr. All In terms of bombarding us with just by Bitcoin, which was the business that we worked for, actually servicing Mt. Gox. So back in 2013 was the very first time that I was just like aware of, Bitcoin and so forth. And then we all know what happened there. Anyway, it's a great opening line as we can relay and talk to other Bitcoiners. The event, fantastic. 100%. I would recommend. It's just like that pilgrimage that you've got to attend, and the spirit of it. And I went with a work colleague that was a no coiner, but open-minded, who I had been orange pilling many a time. And I was really quite conscious that this could come across as a bit too heavy for the person. And I was like, what are you going to think? Am I going to be that guy that's got the crazy tin hat?
It's like taking your atheist mate to church with you, isn't it?
Exactly that. Exactly. And the atheist mate is now a believer.
Oh. You converted him to all Bitcoin.
Did they or have they bought a copy of the Bitcoin Standard or Bible?
They have not bought a copy
Lord.
of the Bitcoin Standard. What they were planning on doing is buying a copy of the Bitcoin Standard for their father, because they reckoned that they didn't need it. Although I recommended it.
Oh man. Have you told them about the pod?
Oh, of course.
If
they weren't aware
of
the pod.
Listen to Dr. Evil 10%, buy the Bitcoin Standard, just read it for yourself. You do need it. And you'll read it multiple times. You won't just read it once, you'll read it multiple times.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I think we have spoken about this person before, and there's a curiosity around Bitcoin. Yeah,
the curiosity was fulfilled, and spoke to the person today, and somebody tried to attack Bitcoin, and straight away the swarm that she gave back was amazing. So yeah, it was very good. So converted.
That's another voice in the business. What's interesting is in one of these talks, I'm just trying to find my note. It talks about you can tell someone about Bitcoin, but it's getting them thinking in the right way in order to draw them in. And it was in one of these actual videos which he linked. One of the speakers actually talks around that, but it's only a short bit because I was waiting for him to say, what's some of the ways which they brought them in. And it kind of, it made me think, like, literally, I got brought into Bitcoin. I ignored Mr. All In for years. And I was just like, fuck off with your magical internet money. You've ridden the bubble, you got rich off it, and you become a trillionaire. It's a bubble. And then it was a retweet, or it was likes or something about Saifedean Ammous, his tweets, which is what got me. So it wasn't directly through Mr. All In, but it was the fact that I was following him on Twitter, which got me down the rabbit hole, and I started reading the Bitcoin Standard. And then for you, it wasn't Mr. All In, it was me saying, read the Bitcoin Standard. And you said, I don't need that. I'm into property. And I said, it will teach you something about money. And that was what got your curiosity, wasn't it?
Yeah, because we're both big historians of money and financial literacy, and I think it was fantastic. But the event was just so good because there were so many diverse people from various different places from around the world. A lot of the people that I'd spent hours watching, literally hours watching, from Jeff Booth, Greg Foss, Leah Halpern, Natalie Brunel was there, Dillian Leclerc, and actually seeing these people and hearing them in the flesh, it was really, really good. So it was like, in a way, meeting some of your Bitcoin heroes. Even seeing Adam back as well. You should don't forget the OG.
Yeah, but there's no Saifedean.
No Safe, no Sailor, no Kaiser, unfortunately.
would you have been able to control yourself if you saw Safer Dean
Nah,
throwing your pants onto the stage?
nah. Yeah, here's my sats.
Was it a bit of a sausage fest?
1000%, yes. Very, very male orientated, and it's funny you mentioned that as well. So, went to go and eat at a place not too far from where we were staying, and it was on the first night that I arrived. So the first talk started at 9:30 on the Wednesday morning. So I arrived on Tuesday, and we went to this place. Of course, we had meat. So had meat at this place, and then the official after party restaurant was the same restaurant where we ate the night before, and what was being served, a meat platter. And in the background all evening was Bitcoin songs as well, and it was brilliant. Every
It wasn't
song.
You got it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like what's she called, Bit Fit.
Oh, it was everything. You name it. It was so the will give us a good shout out because it was nice food. It was called Brai, Brai in Wester Park. Wester Park, nice park. It's quite diverse in terms of some wildlife. Like there was herons walking around, and then even these like green parrots in the trees as well. And Wester Park is this big gas and coal chamber which used to fuel and heat parts of Amsterdam. So the event and the actual building itself had a lot of history around it, as well as the surrounding places as well. So it's a nice place. Would definitely recommend it.
Back to the restaurant. You say it's
Yeah.
a meat restaurant. Was it like a South American, like Argentinian or Brazilian?
Yeah, along those lines. Not all the way like a Ben Brazil, however.
Okay.
Not to that extent, though.
So what would you say was your highlight then of the week?
Right. Well, the highlight, it is one of the talks that we're going to be coming onto. But one of my favorite people in the space is Jeff Booth, because of the way that he just rationalizes things really well. And so, I like him and the ability to see and hear Jeff in person, and he always just makes everything make sense in his calm demeanor in terms of his approach to how Bitcoin will solve a lot of the problems that we're facing today with the broken monetary system. But then I was also blown away at Dillian Leclerc. This kid's 21.
Oh, is he that young?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
he works for, is he Bitcoin Magazine?
That's right, yeah. So he's there.
So I didn't actually see him. I just listened to it, so I didn't actually watch the video. So I didn't have a clue, but he was very articulate, wasn't he?
Extremely articulate. You're absolutely right. Yeah, so I was watching him not only on the main stage, but then on some side chains, and then also he was just chatting to some people outside of my hotel as well, and you could just hear him, and yeah, it was fascinating. So,
do you manage to meet
just think? Say that again.
Did you manage to meet any plebs? And discuss Bitcoin with them and how they got into Bitcoin?
Oh, there was lots of pleb talk. Yeah, lots of and that again is probably my favorite part, is being in that vicinity with so many people that have all come and descended to be in one place. One guy in particular, and I hope he is listening. If not, and I'm going to be meeting him soon again as well. Yeah, you actually follow him, And you didn't know Spartacus Hoddle on Twitter. So he messaged me, and like obviously started following me. And then I saw your Twitter handle on there, and I was just like, oh, I know that guy. So you follow him, and
That's what I always love about going to Bitcoin events, because you're randomly chatting to someone and you kind of click straight away because you're all Bitcoiners, so you nearly already start talking. And you go,
yeah,
go on, what's your Twitter handle? And I nearly always we already follow each other and we've chatted
yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Obviously, I'm more over Bitcoin Twitter. So, but
yeah,
you don't know what my Twitter handle is. You don't know what their Twitter handle.
correct.
Introduce yourself as your normal first names. You don't go up and go, okay, here's my Twitter handle. You go, I'm Jeff. You're John. Da, da, da. And then you're like, yeah, but really, I'm not that. I am. You're like, oh, I follow you. Da, 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 da.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So
I've given him a follow as well.
yeah,
See what it comes out with.
yeah. So yeah, he was, and I really rate him as well because he went to the event, and it's not his first rodeo. So again, shout out to Spartacus Hoddle. He went to Miami by himself. He came to Amsterdam by himself, and is already booked to go back to Miami by himself. And you know why? Because he knows that he's amongst fellow Bitcoin brethren. He doesn't need anybody else. And he's happy and comfortable in his own skin to be able to do so. And I really enjoyed his company. And we had dinner on the Thursday night together with a few other Bitcoiners, and met a Bitcoin artist as well, who's a full-time Bitcoin artist. Shout out to Reese from Newport, and he was selling his art in the actual at the actual event. Again, in one of the side rooms as well. And then there was another guy who works a standard fiat job. I say standard fiat job, it's more than the standard fiat job, but he's looking at getting out and setting up a neo bank, but a Bitcoin neo bank.
Nice.
And just speaking to these people, and I think the first day was quite difficult. Everyone was kind of quite closed off, and I feel like I'm a master networker that can open up anything. But even I was like, oh, this one's a tough crowd. But by the second day, you could tell that the hardcore was still there, and yeah, people were a lot more open. And I think maybe a few doobies were smoked. So they were a lot more, again, open to networking. But it was cool, really cool.
At the same time, they mentioned at this, I think it was the opening, but was it Sivos was going on? So some kind of banking.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Just down the road, yeah.
So one of the hosts, sorry, I didn't catch who it was, offered to swap a Bitcoin 2022 for a cut up Sivos pass.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Do we want to go into the videos then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Which one do you want to start with? So is Bitcoin a hedge against inflation?
That's right. So that was literally the first talk that was there. So again, to me, going back to Spartacus Hoddle very quickly, I went to this event via work, and so everything was paid via work. I'd go so far as to say I would definitely have expensed it myself. Not only because, again, I've got a personal passion, but it was just such a good event. So I would look to go again, and that would have meant I wouldn't have had to have missed some of the talks in person because I was going off doing meetings, trying to network and do other things. So I was like, I had my corporate hat on for my fiat job, but at the same time, I've got my personal passion of actually doing this and And I've done as you know, as I shared with you, a pretty good write-up as well afterwards in terms of Bitcoin and the mass adoption, and then how I feel like it will help, or it's coming soon to the masses. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Bitcoin and the inflation hedge, has it failed?
Yeah, so I think, so I didn't catch who it was because once again I wasn't actually watching, I was just listening. So I think it was this video where we talked about it, that you're comparing two completely different systems. Like you're looking at the fiat system with its inflation, and you're looking at Bitcoin, and it's a fair point. And I think the other thing which was going through my head was, well, you're looking at something which is a settled financial system and something which is Bitcoin, which is still trying to find its place. This is part of the volatility of why Bitcoin goes up and down, because when you invest, you're fundamentally guessing what the worth of it is when it's undervalued. So, it goes up and down. People go, oh, it's overvalued, I better sell. Or I need this money for my house, or I need this money for a car or a boiler, whatever else. So it's that's why it's so volatile. Whereas if you are in a Bitcoin standard, it's obviously going to be steady. And I kind of look at this and go, it's not really an inflation hedge yet because it's not a settled system in my mind.
Yeah.
And they gave you the metrics. So the stock market is 500 trillion. And then you've got Bitcoin at the moment is 500 billion. And so you've got Bitcoin and they say, oh, has it been a hedge against inflation? It's down 75% in the last year. That doesn't look like a very good hedge. But then something that is 1,000 times bigger, which is the stock market, that's down 30-40% over the same time frame. And as much as Bitcoin looks worse, it's like, no, but Bitcoin is a gnat. So just knocking Bitcoin by a little bit, it can lose half its value because it's hardly anything that needs to be sold for that to happen. For the stock market, which is pretty much everything, all business around the world is all just denominated in this thing. For that to drop by 30 or 40% is ginormous and a huge failure in the economic system. It means we're either super overvalued or something is seriously going wrong, or both.
Well, and that's only half it as well. We've seen mass amounts of printing in order to prop bonds up.
Correct.
In the UK, I want to say there's more countries. I know there's Italy for certain, but they've basically had to support the bonds in these various countries by mass printing as well. So it could look a lot worse if they hadn't done that.
Yeah,
we're starting to see a collapse in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it, that we're doing a function that has never worked. We've tried mass printing before and it doesn't work, but yet we're doing it again.
Well, they're solving inflation caused by mass printing with more printing.
Yeah.
Didn't you get the memo?
Yeah.
The problem they're in is that there is no alternative other than to crash the entire system.
Correct.
Because the entire system is propped up by this printed money, which keeps devaluing. So you have to print more to keep propping it up. They don't want to let it fail until they can transition into something. And that's where people like me come in and go, well, I think they're trying to transition into the Great Reset, because that is kind of, instead of a complete fall from grace and everything blowing up, and all our public services just suddenly, everyone that works for them will just walk out because there'll be no money to pay them. So, health services, police forces, all that just go to zero overnight because no one gets paid. The government don't have any money to pay them. They all just walk out. What they're trying to do is transition to socialism. That's what I think that's going to happen. So they really are in the rock or hard place because they're not ready to move into socialism yet. They haven't got all the infrastructure built out. So they literally have to keep printing. But instead, like the latest bill by Biden is called the Inflation Reduction Bill. And the first 5 years, he prints this shit out of money again. You can't call it a deflation bill and then have inflation in it. It's just, are people really that stupid? And I guess the answer is yes. Well, I see a lot of people online supporting it.
Because the history of money has been fundamentally erased from any kind of mainstream. It's not taught in school because otherwise if they'd actually studied the history of money, they'd see it's happened numerous times and it's collapsed empires. This isn't the first time. It's happened in many different guises. Like the one which always sticks in my mind is the coin clipping, which is fundamentally the same, taking the value out of the coins. So what was it, gold and the Roman coins, and reducing the amount over time. So fundamentally, they're spreading the amount of gold across numerous different coins. And so, has it happened before? Yes. Is this time, is it going to be different? Of course.
Mhm.
And CBDCs, I think the interesting thing about them, like, you're talking about price of goods going up, but the way to hide it is with CBDCs, they're programmable about what you can buy. So if the price of gas goes up, sorry, your CBDC doesn't allow you to buy gas. And therefore, the demand goes down, and therefore the price sinks back down. So the government not only have control about the citizens, they also have control about what they're buying. As in, the company. So you got like British Gas, they're going, I don't know, it's a tenner for whatever metric it is of gas. And they go, well, no one's buying it this month. And they go, oh shit, it's going back down to £2 then, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how they've the control. So the government continues its printing, and it can print as much as it wants under a CBDC, but the price of all these goods never goes up, because otherwise it gets whipped back into where they want it.
And it's interesting you say that, because I've never really just thought about the companies as well. So I've always thought about the individual, but they will have control over companies and what companies do, both good and bad.
Yeah. It sounds like a good idea. It's like the start of a Star Wars episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
To a certain extent, with companies, they already have quite a lot of control, because especially if you're a listed company, that's why all these diversity statistics, like females and trans people on your boards, and now they're putting the ECG numbers in, so they can already kind of force stuff on companies a little bit. But the CBDCs undoubtedly make it easier, because it's very easy to then punish companies.
I wonder if they'll have quotas for bald people on the board.
Especially if you're a white cis male, like you're dirt. You're basically automatically a racist.
Yeah.
You have to go blackface and be trans.
How many minutes are we in?
Yeah. How to be deplatformed from everything.
It's okay. He doesn't have a job.
Yeah. It's fine.
You can still delete me off everything. But I liked how they started it, actually, because it's one of those where, the inflation narrative, right? Has Bitcoin beaten it? And it's interesting, the fact that it's very much accepted, and a lot of people would fight the position of fiat, provided inflation stays at about 2 or 3% a year. Most people will go, that's a success. And I like how Jeff starts his talk with pretty much, why do we accept having 2 to 3% of our wealth stolen from us every year just to have a functioning economy? It doesn't make any sense. I don't need to have my wealth eroded every year just so the economy goes round. I'm adding value. I take value out, and I need to make sure those things balance for me. To supply and demand thing on how much value I add. I don't need a guaranteed 2 or 3% going out the back door somewhere. Where did that go? And guess what? It goes to the money printer, and who's closer to the money printers? It's all the elite and the politicians, all scrabbling. The second that money comes off the printer, they grab most of it, and a little bit might filter down to the odd public service over there, but the majority get grabbed off the sides. And fundamentally, we have to fund that, and your savings get eroded by 2% a year, which straight away then means, every single person in the world needs to become an institutional investor. Because if you don't learn investing and you start saving over a 50-year period, your money will be worthless by the time you retire. You can't just put it into the bank and save it like we would do hundreds of years ago, where you save your gold coins, you save them for your retirement, and the value of that gold would be worth more when you retired, at least the same, or more when you retired, because you would have a good store of value there. Fiat is not a good store of value, because we've accepted as an entire nation, an entire global kind of society, that losing 2 to 3% is just normal.
it stimulates the economy. But the funny thing is, if you think it's 2 or 3%, what are the stats when they talk about GDP growth? So they roll out this GDP growth and they're like, oh, it's 2%. And you're kind of going, well, 2% growth isn't that how much you've inflated the monetary supply, so therefore we're stalling, or it could even be negative. So it is just smoke and mirrors. And I think it was Jeff Booth who mentioned that they're talking about 4 to 6. So the government-backed economists are saying, well, it should be 4 or 6%.
Yeah, well, 4 to 6 looks good now because we're on 8 to 15.
Yeah, exactly.
No one would believe them if they said we're going back to 2. So you just have to go, we'll just say 4 to 6 because that will get some optimism. But it still means that literally for every 100 grand you have, you're going to lose 6 grand of it. It just evaporates. The spending power just disappears. And that's every single year as well.
Yeah, I think, in the fiat standard, they talked about, Saifedean talked about the transition from fiat to Bitcoin, and it is pretty much the playbook of what El Salvador are doing. So it's having that joint currency and having an escape hatch ready for everyone to move over to. Everyone has a bit of both. And when fiat starts going down the pan, you just move over to Bitcoin. And that's the seamless transition.
And I think that's sensible because it's like what's happening in El Salvador. You've got the choice of dollars or you've got the choice of Bitcoin.
Yeah, you literally, no money has ever worked when it's been forced on people. Human beings find sound money themselves. Like no one forced gold on anyone. There's no dictator that just announced gold is the standard now. You have to fucking use it. Human beings just started using it. And we evolved from all the forms of money before that had a lot of weight and a lot of nostalgia in the system. The smartest people realized now these things aren't scarce anymore. This thing seems more scarce. I think I'm going to denominate my wealth in this thing now. And it just spread because human beings are smart and they see the value of one thing going down, the value of another thing going up, and they move to it. And that's why we don't need governments to do shit. It's like El Salvador is a good example, but it's a little bit top down. It's a little bit too much of a you need to. In reality, I much prefer how Bitcoin is evolving all around the world anyway. And you see this when you go to these types of events. You have people all around the world who are huge Bitcoin maxis that are moving to a Bitcoin standard. And every single year, these events get bigger. So before you know it, when you fast forward another decade, entire countries are going to be full of Bitcoiners, but they're still going to be on some weird fiat standard probably. But most people won't be using it. They'll be on a Bitcoin standard on their day-to-day lives. And that's how money evolves. That's how we get a switch. We just get people choose the people. And once, because as we know, money is a belief system. And whatever money is believed to be the most valuable is the money that gets used. So once we all stop believing in fiat and the majority don't believe it anymore, or even just a larger minority, say if you get to 20, 30% of the population of a country who migrate over to Bitcoin.
We need you to buy that island. When you buy that island, we'll all move there and we can have a Bitcoin standard.
One of the panelists, which was Prince Philip of Serbia, not how Peter McCormack introduced him, Prince Philip of Suburbia, which is why he said that. His role is around nation states adopting a Bitcoin standard. So that was obviously quite interesting having him there as well. So and it's happening. But to your point, the choice is, I think, the real key one. And it'll get to the stage where, because so many things are being thrown at the average person, and then they'll see Bitcoin, which has been there all this time and will continue to be there, and they'll want to defect to the other side. They'll make that choice. And then they'll come to the conclusion of all of the good points around Bitcoin, and it'll just be inevitable. But again, as I always say, I feel like it'll be longer than what we actually would want it to be, to me and you.
It just looks tomorrow. Like everything's speeding up so much, but it is that trap of the CBDCs. And it's just whether we can push back about the CBDCs because it's going to be forced on.
It's a distraction, isn't it? It's a distraction of the inevitable.
If anything, that could be a fantastic catalyst.
Yeah.
Almost CBDCs could actually be what makes Bitcoin hyperinflation work, because people will migrate to it and then they'll suddenly realize what's happened. And all we think that the Canadian truckers and what happened to their bank accounts is an isolated incident, and potentially a load of people would even say they deserved it. Once they see what CBDs can do for people, and they'll just say a dodgy comment on Facebook, they'll slag off the Prime Minister or whatever, and they'll have their banking frozen for 2 days. And then they're starting to put carbon footprint type things, and they're going to track how much fuel and whatever they use, and they go, I've used too much fuel this month, you can't go on holiday. And they're suddenly going to go, what the fuck have I signed up for here? And Bitcoin will just be sat there going, hello, I've always been here. And I think it literally could be the thing that just tips people over the edge to go, this is not what I signed up for. I'm getting out of this.
There's one of the heads, in America, the Fed has, 4 different areas. I can't remember what they are. But one of the heads was talking about CBDCs, and it's this video within a meeting. And he just says, what are the actual benefits? What can a CBDC do, which, Vimo or one of the other apps can't do? And he's actually has nothing. The only reason is because of control. And this is someone in the Fed high up was saying this.
With
it's
branding,
take note.
They're trying to say, they're trying to admit that fiat is failing, it's hitting hyperinflation. Okay. But CBDCs is fiat on the blockchain. So therefore fixed. It's literally just marketing, because anyone that asks the next layer of question goes, well, hold on, the problem with fiat over here was infinite printing. Are you going to stop printing because it's on a blockchain, which you own anyway, which is technically a database, which is the same database that's held in the Fed anyway, so you haven't really changed anything. Are you going to stop printing on a CBDC standard? No. Right, it's the same then, with extra levels of control and security.
You make it completely cashless, so there's no unseen transactions.
But they're trying to trick the average person by going, no, it's fiat on the blockchain. We've upgraded. Fiat failed. CBDCs are the new shiny thing, and they're trying to buy another 10 years by doing that.
I sure as hell don't want to use it, but I do fear that I'm going to be put in a position where I do.
Well, if you're working a fiat job, when they come in, you'll get paid in them. Then you won't.
Yeah, exactly. I won't have a choice. Correct. Because I've got to keep my house, I've got to keep my family, but then it's going to move from just being, it's a replacement, through to you've had beef once this month, you can't have it anymore. And you've got to have your soy.
Stop you converting it into Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, so it's making sure you have to stack.
Exactly, that'll be the key thing. How are you then going to off-ramp that CBDC into Bitcoin?
Especially if you've been a naughty boy on Twitter or something.
Especially when they see me following you, and the fact that you're constantly banned from LinkedIn.
Yeah, I definitely a bad connection to have for anyone that wants to get anything.
I'll just be like, I don't know him.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people have moved more and more into this opinionated position, being able to say what they want to a certain extent, and CBDCs will cool that. And so again, from a government perspective, it'll be fantastic. The only things that you will dare say are good things. And obviously you can try and say something bad, but it'll all be linked to you. There will be no way out to mask who you are in some way, shape or form.
The easy thing is, it's like we literally already have this example in China, don't we? We have it there. They all have like this one app called WeChat, which everything happens in their banking, their social media, their e-commerce, everything. So whilst they don't call it a CBDC, they have a fiat currency that is predominantly digital, that all happens in here. But if you get banned by talking out against the government or whatever, you'll get suspended from WeChat. And they also have the genius little extra thing in there where, say I get banned, both of you would also get negative points as well. because you're connected to me.
We saw it when
Straight away
when
motivates you to not interact with me anymore.
when they were getting all those bank runs and protests, that they flagged the COVID things to stop people traveling via train to where the protests were going on, because they could see what was happening. And then when they went back home, it suddenly went green and said that they could travel. But when it went near the train station, it's bang red. And then we've seen it in the western province of China, known as Canada, where if you protested against truckers having vaccines, you had your bank account suspended, you had threats of having your dog put down and your children being taken away.
Yeah, that's the world that we're
all facts as well, if anyone's doubting what I've just said there.
No, because you're funny you say this, because I said this to a friend of mine about China's social credit score, and it was like, no, that's not happening, and it's not real.
It's slowly coming in.
And I was
It's
just
slowly
like,
coming in.
dude, I hate to break it to you, but it's here. It's there, and it was just like, oh, okay, if it is real, then fair enough. And like, yeah, and it's not only there, it's coming here.
Yeah, it's hilarious that someone would literally deny that's not happening in China. So it's
Yeah.
Like,
and we've seen the start of it with all the bannings from social media for what was it, fake news and other factors.
Oh man, we had 2 years. We got locked in our house and had to get jabbed in the arm.
It's very much coming.
They couldn't have had a nice. That's literally like the fire test before the proper fire. They did the fire test just to go, is anyone going to listen to us if the fire alarm goes off? Are they all going to get up and get out? And they set the alarm off during COVID and told everyone to fucking stay home, and you're only allowed out if you get jabbed to wear a mask. I don't think they can even believe how well it went. This lot are ready for boiling. We've done it. The propaganda machine has worked. We can that is a great little test for its little 2-year period. Right, now let's just gather our thoughts again. What do you want to do? Let's really get all these models, get all our ducks in a line, and then bang, in 2030, we're going to roll out global socialism. All these fucking idiots are going to just fall in line. They're little lemmings, and they'll work all shitty jobs for no fucking money. And whenever anyone steps out of line, we don't even need a police force. They'll report them for us because they're good little plebs. And it's disappointing that my fellow humans are fucking stupid. But
there was that reward, wasn't there, for people during lockdown? If you were seeing neighbours like going out of their house more than once, there was a reward.
You know, people were calling, like, someone had a barbecue, 7 people, you're allowed 6. They'd be on the phone to the and all what happens is a fine comes through the post and you get fined 10 grand or whatever it was. And anyway, let's move on to the next
bring
one.
back the nightmares. Let's go on to the next one, but the ultimate shitcoin.
What, the euro?
Yeah. I mean, this one was an interesting one, again, in the fact that, just by way of background, the euro was created in 2002, so 20 years ago. And it was the amalgamation of various nation states in the EU simply saying, we are going to give up our individual currencies, the lira, the drachma, the pesos, what else was out there? The dirham, maybe, as well, in Turkey and so forth, and simply adopt a single currency and be one. So those single currencies developed into the euro, and you've got various different baskets, and those baskets just never ever balanced. And they didn't balance because they weren't all balanced to begin with. Germany was a large nation state within the EU states. Obviously, the UK and Britain decided not to opt in to the EU, but was part of the EU at the time.
Well, Tony Blair was trying to force it, but the people were starting to revolt around it about the sovereign. They wanted the sovereignty of having their own currency, not more around why would we want to have a currency with Italy?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we know, the likes of Greece and Cyprus also as well, right? So ultimately we got to the stage of, right, we've got this single currency. And now 20 years later, the experiment seems to have failed. And why has it failed?
Well, I was going to say, when you mix in a mixture of strong, well, one real strong economy and a load of weak ones, it's going to drag them to the bottom, especially when the weak economies think it's a signal to spend on anything which they can, like Greece.
Yeah, and in reality, like, has it failed? Like, it's just like all fiat's going to zero, right? It's just
exactly that.
The problem is, like, we say it's failed just in relation to the dollar. That's all fiat currency is related to the dollar. But the dollar is just the bully that if any currency gets anywhere fucking near it, they come over, threaten nuclear war against them. And unless you let them buy a load of your goods and services off them for their freely printed dollars, and they won't accept your currency. So of course every single currency underperforms compared to the dollar because they're the bully in the room that is going around taking everyone's lunch money. So
exactly.
Did the euro ever have a chance? Like, because it does make sense, right? It's like, do you want like 20, 30 different countries all doing their own kind of trade deals, surely grouping together as a consortium and then negotiating as a block is going to be more powerful than not? That does all make sense, but you're trying to negotiate against the US dollar, you're always going to lose because if you even slightly start,
they tried to block them together to have the advantage, and then it's also they've all followed the same kind of plan, which is outsource a number of your key services like energy to other countries and then basically be stuck on them. So they're outsourcing for cheapness, and they've basically been exposed themselves to, well, different leverages, haven't they?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem, like, I think, unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, I don't really care, but the EU, like, that when you merge all these governments together, all you ended up with, it's like it should be a speed of decision making. Instead, they've added lots of different layers of bureaucracy, so lots of things took longer to go. Like, innovation is slower. Just creating businesses is now slower.
Well, you think about just the UK, the layers of bureaucracy, like you've got general government, you've got the local, you've got councils, you've got all kinds of different tiers, which regulations, and literally if you want to do an extension to your house, you have to jump through several different hoops, whereas it literally should just be relatively straightforward.
What it came down to it, didn't it? Literally, like, a local farmer would have to have like regulation pushed on him about how long and how much curvature a banana can have based on some person in Brussels and what they would state. And that wouldn't have been the case before and all that type of stuff. And it's that level of kind of stuff. What you could have done when you get together as a block, you could have built in efficiency. But guess what? On a fiat standard, so what happened is once we grouped together, they printed a load of money to fund more politicians, more regulators, more rules, more red tape. And instead of making things slicker, more efficient, they slowed it down and made it clunkier.
But you've also got it times two. You got it in country, and you got it Europe as well. So like the UK is bad enough with its layers of bureaucracy where we just paid it from a fiat standard, but in Europe you got an extra layer.
Yeah, I was going to say, and added on to that is they also went woke. So they suddenly started believing in all this diversity and ESG kind of bollocks. So they filled their government full of idiots, and they've switched off all their.
You can sustain off the sun even though we go into winter in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So they cancelled plans for nuclear power plants, if not closed some existing ones down. Moved a load of money from nuclear into green energy, and which green is even like obviously misbranding because half of it isn't green.
It can't even be recycled.
No, it's something more dirty than coal, if you could argue. But they moved it, and it's just infinitely less efficient. So they've moved a load of money to that, and now guess where we are? And that was the last panel actually touched on this, which was the last couple of crises we've had. Like a financial crisis, you can print yourself out of it. You can have a war, you can print yourself out of that. You can have a pandemic, and you can print yourself out of that. When you've got an energy crisis, you can't print yourself out of that. You can't print energy. So this time they kind of fucked it, and they've made a lot of mistakes. That is, whether it's purposeful or not, who knows? But we're in a genuine crisis now, where just printing a load of money doesn't make energy turn up.
Correct.
They've obviously started putting money into people's bank accounts directly to pay for the energy. But if this whole war with Russia and stuff is as legit as they're saying it is, he can cut off the supply. It's over like a third of the supply of the whole of Europe comes from Russia. If he switches that off, there's no amount of printing money makes that gas and oil turn up. It's not here for a third of Europe. And that kills millions. Like, we're just approaching winter right now.
Well, we're seeing, the conditioning of there will be blackouts happening in January and February between 4 and 7 due to not having the ability to pay for the oil and gas.
It's interesting that it's those times, though. That's when people have their dinner.
Yes.
Well, I guess it's in the day when they're arguing the sunlight.
Yeah, but for kids, it's literally, that's their dinner time.
Yeah.
So that's your family meal. So it's quite a weird one. Like there is stuff coming out, and you're kind of going, is this actually going to happen? So they can reduce demand in order to bring the price down. So like I said, it's almost a trick from the CBDC, which I was talking about earlier. It's because we filled up our tanks, didn't we? Like, this is why our prices are X, because we filled them up throughout the year when the price was higher. And that's what is really strange about this.
Yeah.
But, with the bits, you talked about printing the money. So I think he referred to it in the video. Germany's printing money to help the people. It says it's like Myanmar 2.0. Like, you're creating further inflation to counter the inflation which you caused.
Also, as well, which came out, which I thought was a very interesting point, is that this also gives China an understanding as to how the USA will fight Russia, so that they can be better prepared when they come to fight the USA, because their defenses could be depleted, because Russia will no doubt put up a half decent fight, but yet still lose, and so they are going to become the world #1 superpower with a lot more ease, but better strategy as to how to become so.
US seems to be keeping one kind of like step away from this, so they haven't got fully involved, have they?
They're itching, yeah.
So the whole of Europe and America is, it's like I've said, it's like they're literally standing on the front line with the Ukrainians, but they're just handing the gun to the Ukrainian guy and saying, shoot at that guy. Like, are you part of the war at that point? Like, I'd say you are. Like, you haven't fired a bullet directly, but you handed the gun loaded to the guy, and then he shot it at Russia. And
I think they also talked about that Russia and China working together. So I think this is to counter the US, so kind of to Sir Neverlook's point. Is that BRICS? Because I've heard various things about that. I think that's some of the Arab states, Russia, China, basically to topple the US out of the way.
Yeah, it doesn't look like places like India and stuff that they're not playing ball. Like they're buying all this cheap Russian energy that no one wants anymore. Well, Europe does want, but is refusing because we have sanctions. It's like, these sanctions are going to hurt Putin so much, and he's like, I'm pretty sure you need this energy, dickhead. I'll sell it to these guys instead. And India just go, well, fuck it, we'll buy that energy at a slight discount. And Putin's like, all right. Yeah. And it just goes round Europe and goes down to India instead. So it's like, India clearly isn't in on this whole sanctions bollocks. And China clearly aren't either. India and China seemingly are the ones that are buying up all the energy. So it's like, it's very much the West and this Western propaganda narrative that Russia's evil and all that. Very clear.
Here you go. So
BRICS do not get that.
So I think it is. So this is BRICS. It's the acronym coined to associate five major emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So there's been talks about whether they'll create their own currency, which will basically become, like the number one. But I imagine it would be created, and then China would just go, it's now the Chinese yen. Fuck off.
Yeah, there's no way China or Russia are gonna be number one and be number two in that or collaborate.
Exactly. I don't think whilst they are getting along, I don't think they'll ever get on and be on the same page as in China and Russia.
No, they'll only get along as long as America's the enemy.
Correct.
If you ever topple the enemy, they then turn on each other.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. Like, I think, Brazil and India wouldn't, but Russia and China would be the two who you'd think would turn on each other.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Although they probably, to begin with, they partner up to kill the others. And then once they're dead, then the two big dogs have the final fight over who's really going to rule the world.
And
as we've always said,
I was just going to say Argentina has requested to join BRICS, but I'm sure they just go, why would we want you? You're owned by the IMF now, aren't you?
Yeah. As we've always said, this is the WWE and this is the Royal Rumble. And the competitors have all come in after 2 minutes each, and they have realized that we are stronger together. And if we outlast everybody and we throw them all over the top rope, we can then duke it out at the end and then see who wins between Russia and China. So they know it makes sense to partner right now, but lo and behold, they'll be there at the end, whether they're draw number 1 or draw number 30. It doesn't matter where they come in.
Yeah, because I am very skeptical. Although the more I look at this, I do think actually Putin in China might actually be a bit of a problem for these elitists. I actually genuinely don't think the amount of shit going their way. I actually do think they are an issue, and they do actually genuinely want to remove them because they're a threat. So this whole great thing that I think they're trying to transition into, they don't want escape hatches. And China actually, I think, is probably already on board. They pretty much are the test bed for a great reset. They're already in it. But I think Russia is a genuine problem child where he's not playing ball and he's not willing to go onto that. He's like, no, I want a nice Russia and I don't want socialism. I am a dictator, but I run it as I run it. And I don't believe in your like global currency and global socialism. You can go suck a dick. I'm not being part of that. And I think they're going like, he's a problem. We don't want someone as vocal as this with as many people and as much financial wealth and potentially nuclear wealth as well, still existing when we transition. It could disrupt people and turn them away. So we need to defeat him. So I think over the next couple of years, they want Putin down. They want some US puppets running the Russian government instead. And then really, then that's their main opposition. That's the main person really speaking out against all this fiat bollocks is Putin, to be fair. He seems, whenever I've said this before in this pod, when you listen to all the various world leaders speak, the one that makes the most sense to me is Putin. He's the one that sounds like us. He's literally calling out fiat printing for the scam that it is. I think
he's just trying to unsettle people, isn't
he? Well, who knows? He's just saying it how it is, though, right? He's not lying.
But it's everything which he does himself. Like he's saying it, so it leaks out into the Western media, so that people go, "Fucking hell, they're doing this to us."
Yeah, well, he's doing it in response to like journalists quizzing him, going, "You're a dictator, warmonger," and he just responds with, "I'm not trying to start war with anyone. They started the war with me, and anyway." You started wars with Afghanistan. You've printed all the money. You're stealing from your citizens. And he's just going, I'm the bad guy. You come from countries that are worse than me, yet you think I'm evil and your politicians are the angels. And he's just reversing it on them. And the thing is, like, so many people have so much America and UK and Euro propaganda in their heads they don't think they're as bad as him. When in reality, the politicians we have voted in are worse than Putin, have killed more, have stolen more. But
they just do it in different ways. So it's Putin, anyone who dissents against him, I just don't think it's a positive. But then you look at some of the things which the US has done, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Vietnam, there's a massive list for what they've done, Libya, and you look at some of the you look at some of the reasons, and it's very weak, such as Iraq and Syria. No, it wasn't Syria. It was not Lebanon, Libya, where they pretty much said, "Oh, dictator." It's just like, well, how can we not go into North Korea or somewhere else? You're going there for specific reasons. It was when they tried to introduce some kind of gold standard to North Africa, and when Saddam Hussein wanted to pay, what is it, in euros for oil?
Yeah. In nearly every single instance, it's America going around the world trying to buy up natural resources. They demand to pay in dollars, and if you don't, they go to war with you. And they don't say that's the reason. They say it's, we're installing democracy. And in reality, look at every country they've ever been in where they've installed democracy. It's just a load of rubble, and all the natural resources are now gone. You've just had some freedom bombs dropped on your head by America.
The recent one was hilarious. Was it Afghanistan, where they just left, and it's like, there's going to be freedom. Then what they called took over, and literally straight away girls weren't allowed to go to school.
Yeah, and they left the list of the Afghan informants and translators, all the people that had helped the US government do what they'd done. They left the list of those people just on desks. The Taliban walked straight in, found those lists, and executed all those people. It's like, that is the level of loyalty the US has. They will come in, they'll bribe you, they'll get you to turn on your own people to essentially enable you to steal everything that country has for a quick win. And all those people that took the quick win and helped the US do what they did, they're all dead now. And if anything, it's almost the perfect crime, right? Because you can just say that was a mistake. But in reality, what happened is the Taliban kind of cleansed Afghanistan of all the people that knew what America did, because they left the lists all in the open. Because they claim, it was a rush. They didn't have time to clear it up. They left in the middle of the night because the Taliban were on the front gates. Like, dude, you're America. You've been invading this country for 20 years. You can't even protect your own embassy, and just burning a couple of documents, and thousands of people died. And it seems very convenient, but America did it.
We had
do you ever envision a world where, just going back to what you said, where the US or another Western country overtakes Russia and occupies Russia? Because, so effectively taking down Putin could happen without a shadow of a doubt. But then actually occupying it, being so close next to China, is that a reality?
Yeah, well, that's has to be the plan. Obviously, if you get rid of Putin, what happens is one of his mates comes in, and they're going to be the same mindset. We know Putin, to a certain extent, is a little bit of a puppet as well. He's the face of those 100 Russian oligarchs that kind of control the majority of the wealth. And if you knock one off, it's just whack-a-mole. Another one pops up. It's just, it won't look like Putin, but he'll do the same thing. But for America to win, and everything they've ever done in every war they've ever gone into is part of it. It's just like how they're doing in Ukraine right now. They literally donated a load of money to Ukraine, but it came with caveats, which was, we want this politician in here, that politician in there. So essentially, they took over the Ukrainian government. They now run Ukraine. So now all trade deals and financial deals and all the kind of loans they sign up for are all completely in. They will agree to anything that America prompts now, because they have a puppet government in Ukraine that will do it. So that is what they're going to want in Russia. But that's going to take a lot of damage.
Yes.
I think that's why they're really that's what they're building up to. That they need something big, because Russia, I think I'm actually coming to the terms with they're not in this WWE game. The WWE game is kind of being played in the West, and we're all just this whole like, you know, diversity and climate crisis and COVID crisis, all that kind of bollocks. We're playing that game. And Russia just sat on their own, being like, fuck off, we're doing our own thing, leave us the fuck alone. And we need to stop him. We need him on side. So I think they are going to go in with force, and they are going to risk nuclear war, because he's gonna defend himself to the hill.
Exactly.
He doesn't want to be taken over, obviously, and Russia don't want to give in to this, because it's not a good ending for all of them. If they topple, they're the last standing big country really that haven't given in to authoritarianism. So once they fall and a puppet US government gets put in, that's it. And that is the end goal. They're not going to just accept Putin going. They want the entire head of the snake chopped off and replaced with an American head. And then they've got control again. Now they can just do any trade deal they want. And they control the laws, all the regulations. But to get to that, that's going to be messy. Millions of people will die. Like literally millions will die to get that done. And but they've done it before. So they're probably going to do it again.
It'll be interesting. Definitely interesting. Just the whole, climate, language, everything else that goes along with it.
We've gone on a bit of a rant away from Bitcoin, I feel, though. I know it's connected, but it feels like we kind of lost the subject a little bit.
Well, it's the euro, isn't it?
Well, it's the euro. Yeah.
I think kind of going back to this and some things which you talked about, that bonds are meant to be representative of growth and inflation, but we know they aren't. They're just an absolute piss take, give us more debt. And he also brought around about negative growth over the next 30 years. So hence the big pile of migration. It's all planned, isn't it, to keep the wages down. So you end up with a labour shortage. You ultimately end up paying more for jobs in order to fill the ones which you want to. You're competing with, say, that job down the road, that one, into unemployment. So they need to keep more people migrating in. And it's a really interesting point, because it makes you think about all the stuff going on in the UK with the Daily Mail screaming about immigrants. But it's all planned, because it's need to keep the wages down, don't we?
Yep. And I don't know if we will ever.
Well, in reality, it's not even like they don't really care about keeping wages down for like any statistic reason. It's just that we have to keep the cost of goods down. Like,
well, that's it.
That hides inflation. But this right, illegal immigrants and Chinese labor is how you hide inflation. If everyone gets paid a minimum wage, then inflation is just shown. I've always said that is one of the biggest things we've not realized. Like, literally, we're talking about tuxes before the show started, and we were amazed that you can still buy a tux for £100 now. And 20 years ago, when I bought my first tux, I paid £100 for it. And what's happened behind the scenes is that we've reduced the labor behind the scenes. And that tux probably used to be made in the UK somewhere, but then the wages got too high. So instead of increasing the price of the tux to £200, which is where it should be right now, because the value of the pound is halved in those 20 years, instead, they outsource the labor to China, and they are half the price, which means they can keep the price at £100. They make the same amount of profit. They've just reduced their costs. There's a huge amount of inflation on a lot of our products that is completely hidden by slave labor. Once slave labor goes away, wow, people are going to be so shocked at how much stuff really costs. You think 15-20%? We've been hiding it for the last decade when we outsource everything to China.
Yeah, so it's kind of like with that point, I think, it's the first time it got me really thinking about it. I can't remember who said it, but you kind of went, oh, that's very, very good point. Like you just described it around goods, keeping the price of goods down, and ultimately keeping our friends' businesses business costs cheaper or lower.
Well, again, you touched on this now, and it's probably a much bigger topic, but the modern day slave labor is huge on a global scale. And no one really wants to talk about it, do they? Because it's not a nice thing to think about slavery. But you're working your fiat job for your for the we are slaves. We're just a different form of slaves because when you say that word, you get the images conjured up of people in chains and being beaten and being told what to do, and you've got different classes of slaves as well. You've got the field slave, you've got the working slave, you've got the person that may have been graduated to the house, but yet they were still the slave. But at the end of the day, you think you're more privileged, but you are still that slave working for the master.
You're still going to work for your freedom, and your freedom will be cut in half when you if we go on CBDCs.
Exactly that. And so slave labor has gone up, and at this moment in time it is all around that. I feel the euro put us into slavery, essentially, because you were a slave to the euro. Your savings were cut when the euro came about.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I think like to a certain extent, I think most of Europe at the moment, I wouldn't say we're slaves. Like we have to comply to the fiat currency that we have. And what we pay a forced additional tax that they lie about, that is inflation. They take us.
Oh, just even taxes.
Yeah, but that's not hidden. So that is just they take that. It's this nice and easy. For every pound, they probably take about 50p, if not 70p, once you really work through all the taxes. But that's obvious. But they have a hidden inflation as well, which that really then means even if you're just keeping 30 pence for every pound, if you squirrel that away and save it, it's still going to be stolen behind the scenes constantly via inflation, and that can make you a slave to the system. But really, what I'm talking about when I talk about modern day slavery, I'm talking about people in China that are paid a couple of pounds a day to make dozens of clothes, trainers, electrical items, whatever it might be. And they are in modern day slavery because there's no one chaining them to their desks, there's no one chaining them to the factory to make sure they do it, but there's no other jobs, and they're in poverty. So if they leave the factory and go, screw it, I'm not working here anymore, they will starve outside. So they have to come inside to get fed and watered. But in exchange, they work 18, 19-hour days.
Oh, yeah. There's certainly different levels of this.
And I think in 50 years' time, we will look back on this just the same as like the West imprisoned and enslaved the entire continent of Africa and made them work in our homes. In 50 years' time, the same type of outrage will be happening around the Chinese labor that we're doing right now. I
think what Sir Neverlook was trying to say is different levels. Like there's the extreme, which you're talking about, working for pounds. There's the people who are keep beaten and kept in a basement, which is like your extreme. And then there's kind of like, I suppose, the Western view, which you're saying, which is pretty much you're in nicer conditions, like the house slave, pretty much. So it's kind of like the different levels, and you still are fundamentally a slave to the system. I think that's what he's getting at. But yeah, like you're pointing out, there are definite different levels, and I don't know if you can say you're grateful for it because it's not, this artificial reality which surrounds us in this economy. It's not exactly the nicest conditions to live in as a human, is it?
Oh no. Oh, it's disgusting. In reality, like we'll look back on, our probably grandkids will look back on us and go, how could we knowingly buy all these goods and services from China, knowing the pain and suffering that was happening? And they'll be disgusted with us. And it'll be the same as when we look back on a couple of 100 years ago, when people used to have slaves in their house that would just walk around and just do everything for them. We go, how the fuck did you do that? That's another human being walking around your house doing everything for you for no pay. Like, that's disgusting. I can't imagine that world. We're living in a world now. We're just outsourcing it by 2,000 miles, and the goods just turn up. They don't make them in your house for you. They make them in a factory over here, and they just turn up on your doorstep. Yeah, it's there's a very bad look, and I must admit, I am not freaking innocent in this. I buy plenty of things off Amazon that all have made in China on the bottom of them, so I am just as guilty as anyone else. But it's a weird, like we've literally built it, and the thing is, it's a necessity. We've had to do this to stop our economic system collapsing, because all the goods and services were made in a Western country, paid with Western fiat, the goods would be double, triple, quadruple what they are, and everything would pop earlier.
It wouldn't hide what was going on. So I think we've turned a bit too political in the last story, for my liking. I love a bit of inflation, but we went into politics, which I think we want to stay away from. So do we want to move on to the next story, which was, I don't know if you could call it entertaining or just.
It was.
It
was like a car crash.
And which one is it? Say which one it's talking about first.
So this is Bitcoin's media problem. So it had a couple of guests. It had two journalists who worked for the Financial Times. I think one had just gone independent. So Jemima Kelly and Isabella Kaminska. And then it had two journalists who had gone into Bitcoin related, or were Bitcoiners in general, but I wasn't quite sure which two those are, and then a host.
So you got Pete Rizzo and then Joe Hall. So essentially they were pro Bitcoin, but once upon a time they weren't necessarily until they'd actually got it. And then Isabella and Jemima were anti-Bitcoin.
I think anti the position. So you've got the Bitcoiners and you got the no coiners, and one of them was described as a doom coiner. So she basically admits that it's got a purpose in a collapsing economy, and that was Isabella. And Jemima was just a nothing. She's like, it doesn't have any use. It's a Ponzi scheme. It just annoyed me so much, this one. She was just a fucking moron. She went on a stage in front of I don't know how many people.
Thousands, there were thousands. Yeah, Westergas was there.
And then at home, you've got millions of people watching this. And she went on stage not knowing her material, not knowing about Bitcoin, not knowing about money, not knowing about the history of money. And she sits there talking for an hour, and it's mainly Jemima who's talking for an hour, but she doesn't know the subject. And she thought that by saying, what I like about Bitcoin is the double spend, it solved the double spend problem. And it's like, that's all she said. And literally it's a Ponzi scheme. She thought that she could say that she knew the subject by saying the double spend conundrum. So she's obviously read that somewhere. Because she didn't go into proof of work, why proof of work is good. She didn't go into the soundness of money, the structure of what hard money is. She literally just talked and talked and talked and said like a lot. But yeah, she was a fucking moron.
It was embarrassing to be there at the time as well. So this talk was the first talk of the second day. And I'd never actually come across this Jemima Kelly, but again in the Bitcoin world, she was quite well known as being negative towards Bitcoin. And as I was sat in the audience, I just thought, this woman is going to get slated, because you could hear, as you say, how ill prepared she was, and the repetitive use of the word like. And Isabella did it as well. As I said in our group, Isabella did say the word like a lot, and I don't know if they were starting to become really nervous in the fact that the way the room was set out, you've got probably about 200 people who had whale passes at the very front, and then the rest of the audience all surrounding them, all watching. And because it was the first talk of the day, everyone's super engaged and watching it. And yeah, she knew that she was coming into the lion's den, but she bit off a lot more than she could chew.
The problem is like this, they really gave like a bad impression. I thought like one of them was it Jemima. And Jemima's the really bad, wasn't she? And Isabel.
Yeah, really bad. Yeah.
Bad. You could just tell that Jemima literally came on very defensive. Anything that was said in positive, or like if she got one of her articles criticized, then she would be straight away on the defensive, wouldn't try and give a balanced point of view, would just go for Bitcoin. And so she literally went from trying to start out with, oh, I acknowledge that Bitcoin is an invention, it solved the double spend problem, which, by the way, the actual host of the panel gave her that little line. So I think that's what triggered her to actually say something genuine. So she said that. And then later on, when she was getting challenged, she went, well, Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme anyway. And so straight away, I'm glad that the guys went, well, hold on. You said Bitcoin is a unique invention to solve the double spend problem. But then you've also now said it's a Ponzi scheme. It can't be both. A Ponzi scheme adds no value. It's just it's a Ponzi. It's just you're taking money in on false pretenses and it all collapses eventually. So is Bitcoin that, which is a Ponzi, or has it solved the double spend problem? You can't have it both ways. And you could just see the cogs were going in her head, and she's like, I don't get the question. I don't like the framing. Like you don't understand basic logic, do you, love?
I've got some quotes, not quists, some quotes here from her. So she's saying, I understand there's 21 million Bitcoin, but there's thousands and tens of thousands of cryptocurrency. There is no scarcity in crypto land. Then we've got, I understand about humility. I recently wrote an article about intellectual humility. And then talking about price, when she's saying, it depends how long you've held it for. Most retail investors got in 2021. What else have we got there? We got a double spend. She said it fixed a double spend problem or whatever. She tried saying that the dollar hasn't devalued when she's trying to put Bitcoin down. So she's saying, you can't have a currency which goes down by 50%. And one of the journalists just looked at her, and I just think he just couldn't be asked, because the immediate response would be like, you do realize they printed 40% of dollars ever in existence in the last few years.
Yeah, you could see the guys on the panel, Pete and the other guy, just quickly find his name. Yeah, they just gave up. They were just like, oh my God.
They're aren't they?
Yeah. It was really bad. And I mean, from where she started off how she talked about learning about Bitcoin from being on a date with an OG Bitcoin bro. And I just thought, I bet that guy is on a yacht somewhere, like right now, just...
In 2013, wasn't it? 2013 that was.
Yeah.
He's out on a yacht.
Going like, oh, how's the price doing, guys? Like, you do realize in 2013 the price of Bitcoin was like $90.
Exactly.
And now you're laughing at the fact that at one point she went, it's below 19,000, guys. You're like, if you'd have bought $1,000 back then, you'd be a millionaire and wouldn't have to be sat on a dumbass share chatting shit.
Yeah, that guy who she went on one date with, he's on a yacht somewhere, sunning his balls, surrounded by supermodels.
Yeah, and got a very lucky escape, because I just thought she is one of those high maintenance women that you just want to stay the hell away from.
Yeah, she looks like Craig Wright in a wig as well.
What was funny as well and was very telling was probably about 3/4 of the way, she diverted the conversation to how many male people were in the crowd. And but she didn't get shot down by the Bitcoin journalist. She got shot down by Isabel, who said it's down to interest. It's
Yep.
it's like football. You know, like Bitcoin is open to all. It's basically whoever finds it can come to it. But it's not sexist, it's not racist, it's not homophobic, it's not transphobic. It is there for everyone. And
Correct.
it's just an idiotic comment. And then she got slapped down by her friend.
Yeah, her fellow female friend.
You tried slipping in there that Bitcoin is sexist. And the only other woman on the panel just went, nah, it's not. It's just about if women want to be here, they could be here. They're just not.
Yeah, absolutely.
In her mind, it's like, that's a good thing because Bitcoin's a scam. So women are smarter than men. That's why they're not here. I'm like, well, everyone here would twist that on its head. It'd be like, no, we're the smart ones for being sat here, I'm afraid. It should be 50-50 men and women, but for whatever reason, women don't like investing. They're not quite as technical, and so they don't get Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I think it's growing. I must admit, I think when I first went to these Bitcoin events, it was 100% men. Like I would say 1 or 2%. And what do you think? What do you reckon the ratio was with women there?
Yeah, great. I'd go 85-15.
Yeah, so
it's growing.
Yeah. It is definitely growing, and naturally, you can tell females in the audience and obviously on the panel, they stand out because it is so male orientated and dominated.
A lot of women on panels, actually. A lot of women on panels.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong, there was lots of women around then, listening, and at that point, I went to the actual conference with a female colleague as well. So,
did you spot any sap diggers?
No, that's a great shout.
I've ever been to, there's normally just a few, just like woof, like 10 out of 10s walking around, all done up to the nines. You're like, they ain't here to fucking learn. They're here to do some sap digging. They're trying to find out where the whales are and get a tax on the whale.
It's like, look for the person with the holes in their shoes.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest Bitcoiner.
Yeah, who's the poorest looking person here? He's probably a trillionaire. Let's go get him.
Yeah. No, as I was looking around, I was thinking there's some trillionaires up in here, for sure.
It is something. It's on my list of things to go to. Is one of these. Ideally get work to pay for it, and obviously not take holidays.
Yeah,
be the dream. So
definitely.
I would put it up there. Like, one of the things that obviously orange pilled me was going to these events. Like, the Bitcoin Standard hadn't been written, because I think what's good about the Bitcoin Standard is not only is it obviously a beautifully written book that takes you from step 1 to step 10 and ends in Bitcoin, but it forces you to spend probably 4 or 5 hours of your life studying Bitcoin from start to finish. And I think going to an event, it does the same thing, because you're sat there fucking looking at the stage and it's all big, it's all freaking. And if you go there for 2 or 3 days, you take in like 5 to 15 hours worth of Bitcoin content of some of the smartest people in Bitcoin talking. And it's not like a podcast that you listen and you're half doing something else and you don't take it in. Like, it's not the same. And then you turn to the person next year and go, oh, that was a good comment, wasn't it? And you suddenly get into a conversation about Bitcoin with the guy next to you. You realize he's just as invested as you are. And they're the kind of things that it really, like, all my doubts kind of went away. Like, what orange pilled me was going to an event and then realizing, holy shit, I'm not a weirdo. It isn't a load of YouTube people and podcast people that are just chatting shit and trying to scam me. Real people. I go to the event, listen to it in person, chat to a load of people around me, all from different areas of the world, and they are all Bitcoiners, and we're all Bitcoiners for the same reason, as in we're looking for sound money.
Yeah.
Realize fiat is a scam, and we want to move on to the next version of Bitcoin. We want to fix the world. We want to fix this fiat scam, and that's the power of going to an event. And you just don't get that from watching a YouTube video here. There's some good key points that come off from it, but I always think some of these things, obviously, they're under pressure. There's time constraints. Normally, like, the kind of panels that happen here are worse than a podcast, because they're going for 25 minutes and that's like get on, get off. And like the key panelists would have had something really good to say if you let them go another 10 minutes. On a podcast, they can do that. They can go as long as they want. But on the panel show, when it's like, no, the next panel's coming on, so fuck off.
Well, they talked about extending this particular one a couple of times.
No, I think they did. No, they definitely did. When I look at the
right.
agenda and the time that was allotted for the agenda, and then the time that they actually had, it was certainly extended. Because I think on average, the longest that it would ever be in terms of a panel was around about 50 minutes, 55. But I don't think theirs was set for that time. I might even be able to tell you.
So they mentioned, and I think they were looking at some timings whilst it was going on, but I kind of go, it was a shit panel just because they're so ill prepared. I know they probably left it on to be a bit contentious.
Yeah.
And I think in kind of like summary while you're looking for that.
Yeah, 50 minutes it was due for.
So it's over by 10 or so.
Yeah.
Because if they'd actually turned up with their FUD points clear and broken down, what they believe, then it could have been an actual adult conversation, whereas basically a group of people surrounded around an absolute fucking moron making them dance.
If you read still down the comments, she tried to say, oh, it's not scarce, but then she said, but then she got countered because she went, oh, there's loads of shit coins, so Bitcoin, if you don't want Bitcoin, you can have a shit coin. But then it went, but shit coins aren't worth anything, and Bitcoin is. She went, oh yeah, I agree. Like, what? So you agree Bitcoin is scarce then? She went, yeah. You just said it wasn't scarce. Then she ended up saying, oh no, it's a Ponzi. And you go, well, obviously you got no foundation for that. You're an idiot. And she went, oh, you can't spend it on anything. And someone straight away went, well, you can buy Bitcoin for lunch. So someone will send you some sats if you're
correct.
Sure.
Oh yeah, that's a highlight as well. Actually, you could, if you had your Lightning wallet, you could spend in and around the vicinity just like that as well.
Do you partake in any little Lightning transactions? Did you have any sats?
No. Stacking, not not Lightning, but yeah, you could do
that. So looking through our articles, I loaded it up on Financial Times. So the latest article is, sorry, but no, procrastinating will not boost your creativity. Is there really such a thing as crypto addiction? Spare a thought for Kim Kardashian. That sounds like the kind of things which should be in the Financial Times. Then we got, don't believe the maximalists. Bitcoin can't be separated from crypto. Then we got a skeptic's guide to crypto, the crypto Wild West. Trump's True Social is the saddest site on the internet. A skeptic's guide to crypto, the Church of Bitcoin. Britain set for new... she's actually got something which appears to be an adult article. Britain set for new Prime Minister.
Did you come across the article which she wrote? I'm sure she wrote about herself, and it was a plant around her £1.50 TfL ticket that then ended in a fine for around about £467 and then a missed flight to the US for £1,000.
No.
Like, this one was really weird and just makes me feel like she's such a weird person anyway. So she said that she paid for her travel and ticket, but then her phone died 5 minutes later. So when the conductor came around, she wasn't able to show that she had a valid ticket. So she got the fine, and then apparently she wasn't able to show the audit trail where the actual ticket was bought as well. Anyway, that then resulted in her having some sort of misdemeanor on her record, which meant that she then couldn't travel to the US. And that's how she lost like £1,000 later on down the line. And I was just like, oh my God, this woman, she just sounds pure drama.
So we got, here's on page 2. There is a moral case against crypto. The environmental, financial, and psychological harm caused by mining digital currencies is enormous. So I'd love to know why she couldn't talk about this during the panel. And then we got Bitcoin, why I'm still not taking crypto seriously.
Start.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's just non-stop about crypto, but she's written all these articles, but could only come up with it's a male-dominated area and it's a Ponzi, and it's great because it has what was it? It fixes a double spend problem or whatever.
Oh, whatever.
The only question I found interesting, I actually wanted an answer from these two idiots that were from the mainstream media, was when they got asked, are any of you tasked with writing anti-Bitcoin articles? Does that happen? And obviously the main fucking protagonist, what was her name? Jemima,
yeah.
She just went off on a little rant going,
it doesn't work like
I
this.
have integrity. If anyone ever told me what to do, then I would never do it. No. So obviously she's just defensive straight away. But Isabella then chimed in, and
she left because people were telling her what to do.
Exactly. But she didn't admit it directly, and it was a shame. They didn't kind of loop back around, because she went, no, I'm in journalism for the same reasons. But it got to a point in the FT where she didn't say it directly, but she went, I left because I didn't have the freedom to do what I wanted to do. And I really wish the moderator had just circled around and gone, what do you mean? Did you want to write something, say, negative about the financial system, potentially pro-Bitcoin? But there was basically a decided narrative that was getting pushed from the top that went, you need to comply, and we want articles in these areas. And that's essentially what the question was. And she's left to have a voice back again. So essentially what she was doing there was confirming there is a narrative.
Use the word framework.
That was the Bitcoin guy, Peter Rizzo, started that.
Yeah.
She agreed with it. But she admitted that she's left the Financial Times because she wanted freedom to write, because she was feeling constrained. I wanted someone to go, why are you constrained? What do you mean? Dig into that. And really what it would have meant is you need to be pro-lockdown, pro-CBDCs, anti-Bitcoin. Like, you need to comply to these type of beliefs and then write an article based on that, not anti-government and pro-Bitcoin. Like, that is not an article you have to write. And I wanted her to say that, and I think she was close to actually saying it. And actually, by the way, a little quiz question to you two. What were the flowers on the desk of every panel in Bitcoin?
I guess it'd be tulips.
Yeah, both got. Yeah, you got it. It was a nice little hat tip to, obviously you're in Holland. That's where the tulip freaking bubble happened and all that stuff. So it's it was a nice little touch, I thought.
It was brilliant irony, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't that was Jemima didn't go Bitcoin's tulips, and because there's tulips on the desk right in front of her. It's just say it. Go on, you want it. You know you want to. Just say Bitcoin's tulips.
I wish she just brought along a FUD book or something and just gone through this list and then just got absolutely destroyed on the stage, because they just left her alone, and that was part of the problem with that one.
Yeah, that would mean that she'd have had to have some intelligence to pre-think that as well.
It was just disappointing. I would like to see one of these events where they do invite a serious journalist who actually knows her stuff, because what I've taken away from this and looking through her article list is it seems to be, over time, the quality of different publications has gone downhill. I literally look at her articles and go, shouldn't those be in the Daily Mail?
Correct.
And the Daily Mail's probably gone down to the Sun level.
If not worse.
Yeah, so what's actually doing their research and what's actually publishing decent articles?
She even admitted the fact that she worked for Reuters. Reuters are meant to be an apolitical website where they literally just report the news. And she even went, "Oh yeah, I had loads of opinion and used to slate Bitcoin." What are you doing? You're literally admitting not doing your job properly. You're meant to be not a left or right wing paper. You're meant to be the white of the white. Literally, this thing happened. These are the facts, and no opinion. And she was even going, Yeah. So I used to slate Bitcoin for rooters. I wasn't supposed to do that, but that's what I did. It's like, well, what? You're just so, she's so stupid.
I would say that she's salty with that kind of one, but I think she's, like you said, she's just stupid.
Yeah.
She's a salty woman. That's what, and again, because my colleague, she
Bitcoin is sexist.
But no, she said she gives women a bad name.
Yeah.
The way she was coming across.
It's like when I see like a Nouriel Rabuni or just because there's plenty of economists that will get up there and say the same thing. But the thing is, like the arguments against Bitcoin are always the same. And because we're so used to defending ourselves against these things, it's like, have you got anything different other than it's bad for the environment, it's a Ponzi?
But it's even taking those points and explaining them through and having an adult conversation. But having an adult conversation, I would have admired that more.
Yeah. To be fair, previous people that have come on to FUD Bitcoin have done infinitely better than Jemima did. Like they've actually been able to talk for 5 minutes about why Bitcoin won't work and fiat is good and why Bitcoin is a Ponzi and stuff. They've at least tried. But Jemima was just, you can just tell that she's really good behind a keyboard where she can really like refine her thoughts for like days and get an art.
But I doubt it. Looking at the title of her articles, they're probably very high level with no real content and just full of opinion.
Yeah, and I don't think it's even opinion that she even holds that strongly, because as we saw, once she's questioned on it, it's not there. She doesn't actually know what is good or bad about Bitcoin. Because in the end, she just resorted to it's a Ponzi, which that's one of my like red flags for someone. If they ever resort to the fact that they just go Bitcoin's a Ponzi, I tend to walk away at that point and go, right, you're either too far gone or you're just nowhere near ready. Like you need to come off one of these angles and like you fall into a different category of FUD before I even want to talk to you. Because if you're in the Ponzi land, you're so far away from getting about what money is and the evolution of money and what sound money is and why Bitcoin is the answer. Like you're so far away from it that you're a hater at that point. And if you're a hater, it's like you're emotionally against what I'm talking about. So you're going to resist me at every point. I'm not even going to try. You're going to resist me. So I'll come back when you're at least neutral, because at the moment you're a hater. So I'll leave you alone until you calm down.
Do you think back to the evolution? Like we kind of just discounted it. We said it was a bubble. We didn't understand it, which is the big problem with Bitcoin. But at no point would I have gone to a Bitcoin conference and debated someone about it on why I thought it was a bubble, because I didn't know the background. And if she truly wanted to debate someone on Bitcoin, she should have read some of the key texts. The white paper, the Bitcoin standard. You could read Layered Money, you could read Mastering the Lightning Network, even Programming Bitcoin, do all these research points which she could have gone through, but she did nothing at all. And
she comes from the fiat, so she comes from a load of fiat people who will be very, very intelligent and would have told her why Bitcoin will fail, and she's not intelligent enough to be able to.
Well, as soon as she said the line, did you capture when she said the line, what has coding done? Or something along those lines.
I had that one written.
That one for me.
Code won't change anything.
Code won't change anything. Code won't change anything. And I was just like, oh my God, like code helped man go into space. Code helped man put in automated processes so that all these thousands and millions of computers. Exactly. And I was just like, oh my God, no, let's just take her off the stage now and put her down.
Yeah, and in reality, she misses the key point, isn't it? It's like, well, what does this code do? Because in reality, when she was talking about, there's like someone in a third world country or there's someone being deprived here, like how does a bit of code help them? You go, well, yeah, a bit of code, it doesn't. But what does the code do? It creates sound money. Sound money helps build a foundation to build a free and fair society.
Yeah.
It does fix everything. If you fix money, you fix the world. That's
what percentage of the world are unbankable?
It's like 50%.
Well, I think it's 1.5 billion people are unbankable, but then obviously a part of those billion, let's say 8 billion are obviously kids, etc., and so forth. But because I'm reading "Check Your Financial Privilege" or listening to it,
it's
by
on
Alex Gladstein. So so that hopefully answers your question.
Because that's the key point with it, is it's got no use, the unbankables.
Yeah, 100%.
We're not even talking about just the unbankables, though. We're talking about the people that do have banks.
Correct, yeah.
All the people in Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil,
Turkey,
banks, but they fucking closed and sold all their money. So we're helping them as well, and
you're helping everyone with access to a bank, because tomorrow they could close you off because they don't like the fact that you're bold.
If you go some simple case studies, you've got the hyperinflation or high inflation. You've got even if a Bitcoin goes down by 50%, it's not going to go down the same rate as the Argentinian peso.
You've got the war,
and always, by the way, always a difference of Bitcoin. It might go down by 50%, but 3 years later it goes up by 500%. Fiat never comes back. If fiat goes down by 50%, it doesn't come back. It might stabilize at the minus number and then go down slower. It never comes back. They never do hyper deflation. Like Bitcoin comes back. Fiat always stays down.
So you've got the unbankables. Then you've got the one which you just mentioned, Sir Neverlook, which is refugees cross-border. So you can't carry your gold across the border, can you?
Correct.
What other simple case? I think those are
OnlyFans.
Oh, so banks and governments cutting people off from payments. So Canada, OnlyFans, truckers, social credit system in China. So we got, I think, 4 really strong case studies there, which she didn't research.
Yeah.
And she even, not only did she not research it, she actually laughed at it to go, we're just virtue signaling. And, we're helping, the unbanked. And it's just such an insult to Bitcoiners, because Bitcoiners don't virtue signal. If we didn't think we're going to help the unbanked and people that were suffering hyperinflation, we wouldn't say it.
Yeah,
we would just go, no, we're not helping them. We're just trying to get rich, bro. We just be honest, because Bitcoiners kind of just say it straight. If you can't verify it, then we won't do it. But you can verify all this stuff, because you go, why are these people that are getting fucked in various continents of the world? It's because of hyperinflation. And if they had Bitcoin, they wouldn't have lost all their wealth. That is just a fact. And she's like, are you virtue signaling? You're like, nah, we're really not. It's a fact. If they had Bitcoin, they potentially they would have lost 75% of their wealth over the last year. But in the next 3 years, likely they get it back plus a 10x. But instead, they've kept their local currency and they lost 100% of their wealth. And the difference between 100% and 75% is everything.
Yeah.
Because with 25% left, you can still rebuild. Once you go down to 0 and the bank closes and they just go, nope, you can't come into the bank anymore, that's big. That really is big, depending on how much money you've got in there.
And you don't need this.
That's the last one.
You don't need the middleware ultimately.
What, the banks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah, the banks are just third parties you don't need. Replaced with a decentralized wallet. Simple. Come on then. The last one before Sir Neverlook falls asleep.
I know, I'm dying. Oh, we had a right issue last night. We can talk about it off camera.
Was the missus a bit horny?
You know where that got you last time.
Yeah. That's not happening now. I'm officially done.
Fire and blanks.
Yep. It's safer for my bank account. Just ask Mrs. No Show.
Has she had the sniff as well?
No, she needs it.
I'm clipping that. I'm clipping that.
So the last one was, Bitcoin famous.
Hold on, Ross. He's going to say something. What are you going to say something about?
Oh yeah. We'll talk about it after. Yeah.
Oh.
It's not fun. It was no, just the youngest, like, super ill basically, and
I'm
calling. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. No sleep.
I'm glad I'm not back there. So back on the important stuff. So
yeah,
Bitcoin.
back on the
you're now Bitcoin famous. Popped up, asked a question. I'm guessing it must have been like the closing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a Q&A, and what was it? It was around about kind of like self-censorship.
Well,
Shall I play your question that you managed to get answered?
Oh yeah. If you got it queued up.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close to it anyway.
Ask a question, and we'll give it to Aubrey. You, as content creators, are there any topics which you definitely wouldn't touch? Leia, you've been really vocal with Andrew Tate and your support for Andrew Tate, and Lena, you just touched on it there. You don't want to be deplatformed, but is there anything that you just think, this isn't for me, I won't go there?
Hear that? Yeah.
Got it.
I'll increase it a little bit in editing, but I thought, I must admit, fair play. Number one, you got to ask a question. Only like 2 or 3 people got to ask a question. This is only one of the very few panels any questions got answered.
Yeah.
And to these, I must admit, there's 3 women being asked these questions, and in my mind, I know other than Lena, the other 2 are massive shitcoiners. So their morals aren't completely solid. So to ask them, what would you not speak about? Great question.
Yeah. Do you know what, as well? It goes back to the event. I just felt super comfortable. Obviously, put in the work of learning about Bitcoin. And I was just like, why wouldn't I? I'm here. There was like hundreds of people in this like side room, all listening to this conversation. And I was thinking to myself, do I not? Because I was by myself at this point, just listening to the chat. I was just like, fuck it, I'm doing it. So I got up from my seat and then stood up and waited to get asked to ask the question. And yeah, it's just like, let's do it. Let's have it.
Layla liked your British accent.
Indeed, so she should.
You're licking it.
She was all over it.
You wanted Zuby 2.0?
Yeah, Zuby 2.0.
What I liked about the question was the outcome when Peter McCormack decided to start slating Andrew Tate for basically no reason. Was it Leia or was it Lena?
Leia.
Who absolutely slapped him down and embarrassed him. Because it was pretty much, well, why don't you like him? Or whatever comment, and she just dug into it and it's pretty much nothing.
Well, yeah, he said that he's selling a university course around how to do drop shipping, and he went, it's a scam because it doesn't work. And she just went, well, universities are a scam and they charge you loads more. So is everything are we going to say everything's illegal? Who kind of cares, really?
Yeah.
It's and it did shut him down because Peter McCormack very much hates a lot of things, and he doesn't really know why. But then, the things that I did like the previous question to you was a shitcoiner obviously stood up, very cleverly worded. Oh, Bitcoin's amazing, but Web 3.0's here, so are we excited? And I did like Peter McCormack just went, it's all marketing, it's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, it was brilliant when he said that, and I'm glad he said it as well. And the way he said it was just like quick, off the cuff, immediately shut that down. Wish you never asked a question.
Yeah. And it seemed like she was constantly shouting out.
She was, yeah. Did it pick it up?
No, it's not a shitcoin. It's It's like, it's decentralized. It's like, yeah, decentralized between you and your mate. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, yeah. And on that point, you know, he's speaking from a point of authority, having run a marketing company as well. You know, he probably knows a lot more about that than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Despite the fact, you know, he's interviewed however many people on the subject matter, and being close to, you know, some of the best minds in the space. But on this point, he's spot on. It's like, yeah, it's just literally a scam.
Yeah. What disappointed me was I think Layla, to be fair to her, I think you can tell she used to date Zuby, and Zuby's a very outspoken guy. I kind of love Zuby to a certain degree. I think he started shitcoining a little bit. But like Layla, she's a massive shitcoiner. Like she's blocked me like fucking years ago because she shitcoined, and you call her a shitcoiner and she blocks you quite quick. Because the problem is, like, she does have her sound fundamentals in Bitcoin, but then she pivots out of that. And I think, to be fair to her, she kind of admitted that in this talk, where she went, it's hard to make money in Bitcoin. So as a content creator, you need to stay strong to your beliefs, but you also need to make money because it needs to be sustainable.
Correct.
So that's where she kind of was admitting you need to bend your beliefs a bit and go, you know,
yeah,
if I can just pretend this shitcoin is going to spread freedom in some shape or form, I know it's not. I know it's going to enrich these 5 guys, but they are paying me 20 grand to say it. So you know what? I'm taking the 20K. That funds me for another year, and I'll promote their shitcoin to my audience. And she said to your question, she's like, oh no, if you're talking, you shouldn't avoid any topic. You should always believe in your beliefs. You should talk to what your truth is. However, I don't like talking about trans stuff because I might get cancelled. I went, trans stuff is the stuff you're scared of. Like, Jesus Christ, that's level 1 for me. Like, there's a number of levels above trans that I talk about every fucking day.
Like, I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen you actually talk about that. It's usually just berating Bill Gates on LinkedIn about being a pedo.
Yeah.
For me, like, trans is so low level. It's like, it's such like, it's in the weeds for me. It's like, who gives a shit? Like, really, I because in reality, I don't care. Like, by and large, the people that do all that stuff and like want to do whatever, it doesn't matter. So it kind of surprised me that she was nervous about that one. Whereas, how about
the things you brought up?
Pedophiles? Let's call 9/11 an inside job.
Correct.
Let's go after the moon landing. Let's go after the Holocaust. Let's go after the biggies.
Is it time to go?
I mean, she does always talk about, and you know, the pandemic being a scam. She does say that quite often, and that will easily get you cancelled. And her viewership has rose to around about 80,000 or so. I saw her messaging out that last week on LinkedIn. So, but you're right. Those are the real big topics. I don't care if someone wants to dress up with a skirt or anything like that. It's the bigger topics that you just talked about are the ones that affect the majority of people, you know. And also talking on the 9/11 maybe inside job, and that was that. I sent you the link with Patrick B. David, but the New York Times and their coverage of 9/11, or lack of coverage with it on the anniversary date, it's like they're trying to sweep it under the carpet.
I couldn't possibly comment. I don't know what you're talking about.
it's like they did it, and now they don't want to remind you that they did it.
No, let's not focus on all that stuff, because the more you dig into it, the more bollocks you expose. So yeah, it's just, But,
allegedly.
Yeah, but because the thing is that this whole panel, right? It was about the Bitcoin audience, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the content that they make for it. Yeah. So, and Lena, I mean, so the Bitcoin hodler, fantastic. I do have one regret, is maybe not buying a Bitcoin hodler plushie.
How much was she selling them for?
I don't know how much. There was an actual Bitcoin shop in there was an area in Westergas in where we were, in where the actual event was, and they had various different stands and stalls. Crypto Tag had their own stand, only small, 3x3. Again, there was the Bitcoin art in there, and then there was the Bitcoin magazine company in there, and they were selling a range of books, Fiat Standard, Bitcoin Standard, both in English and in Dutch, Divide Everything by 21 Million, and a few other books as well. But they were also selling the Bitcoin magazine, and they had the first Bitcoin magazine, which is now going for €1,500.
Woof! What the hell?
Yeah. So the censorship.
What's the date on that? Did you see the date on it?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't see the date on it. But
Okay,
the
2014, 2015, something.
Yeah, it could be. But the find of the actual event was this.
Oh,
I
it's
don't know if
blanking
it's
out.
coming up okay. Yeah.
What is it?
This is a Bitcoin magazine, and this is the censorship resistant issue, which was June 2022. So this was free. Someone just left it, and so Neverlook picked it up. So yeah, I kind of stole it.
So Neverlook didn't look at who the owner was and stopped.
Yeah, it was left by itself for a while, but that is actually €21. But in time,
What they charge for a magazine, €21.
Yeah, but if you look on the website, after a while they go up. So it's like Bitcoin Magazine are putting scarcity on the magazines themselves, because some of them have gone up to like $600 and more.
Fair play. I can't imagine there's a massive market for the physical version, which is why probably there's quite a lot of scarcity there.
Correct.
Sweet. So
right.
So summarizing, so ultimately you enjoyed Bitcoin 2022.
Yeah, but what I will say is I probably wouldn't have enjoyed Bitcoin 2022 if it was in Miami, if that's because of from speaking to some people, the average plebs, which again I had some really good conversations with, and people that went. They said even at the Bitcoin event, there was shitcoinery being talked about and going on there, and like the exhibition was absolutely huge, but it just involved everything. Yeah. And to me, I actually really liked the closeness and the small accessibility. I mean, it was still probably about 3,000 to 5,000 people there. But
it's funny. I've never been to a Bitcoin conference that big, so it's funny that you go 5,000 people is small.
Yeah,
the conference I've been to is about 500 Bitcoiners max. That's small to me, but yeah, that's why I always think that the smaller the better, because it's more likely to be Bitcoiners there. The bigger it gets, the more likely there are to be all those freaking all the shitcoiners. They start to merge in, and even when you're talking to people, you go, all right, who are you? Da, 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 da. And then before you know it, they're like mentioning a shit coin. You're like, what? Hey, what? And at a Bitcoin conference, I remember like this happening to me, going, this guy is shilling like some random thing, and I look at some guys like, what? But
Yeah.
He just mentioned like a shitcoin, and we chase
Yeah.
him out. He runs out. He's like, yeah, he's gone now. Like, yeah, but Bitcoin Miami, you fucking the virus is spread well, isn't it? Like shitcoin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
What was also funny as well, a lot of people do buy naturally as well. People buy ETH, by the way, when they first get in. So everyone says, yeah, I bought Bitcoin and then I bought ETH and then I
Yeah.
came back to Bitcoin.
Yeah,
It's
natural.
just literally the
Right.
same thing with so many people. And I was just
I
like,
bought
yeah.
Bitcoin, some ETH, a little bit of shitcoin, and then came running back to Bitcoin. I think if you don't go on that journey, then you're not intellectually curious because you think you're like, oh, I found the solution to money, but now I found the solution to the internet. Oh, now I found the solution to fucking cancer, and you're like, no, I'm an idiot. Come running back. I found the solution to money. That was it. That was it. Stop. Don't go any further. I was an idiot. That year, delete that year. I am ashamed of that year. I might have made some money during it, but I am ashamed of it and I undo it.
That's the one. Right. Well, there we have it. That's the review of Bitcoin 2022 Amsterdam, brought to you by Mr. All In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and she was here, but she wasn't here because she's never here. Yeah, every now and again. Episode 71. Peace out.